Welcome to Studio Sessions. I'm Charles Cox here with Kevin Mangini. We're with Giving Work Studios. This is a regular series where we're talking to innovators in the fundraising, technology, and storytelling space. People who are doing really interesting things that we think connect with what we're doing, but also can give some people some great ideas on other aspects of those fields. So just to tell you a little bit of a background, since this is our first episode, Giving Work Studio was born from Kevin Mangini and myself. We've worked together in the past, and over the past several years, I started the first Giving Day with Columbia University in 2012, broke the world record for fundraising, and for 12 years held the world record for fundraising up until $110 million for Purdue in 2023. Over the process, helped raise $420 million for Purdue over 10 years, which most importantly helped them freeze tuition for 14 straight years at a time when educational costs are shooting through the roof. But allow me to turn things over now to Kevin to talk about his also record-breaking background, although he doesn't like to brag about himself. So I'll brag about you later, Kev.
Thank you, Charles. Hi, everybody. I'm Kevin Mangini. My career has been in music, TV, film, news, and advertising. And that storytelling and marketing strategy has been the focus of my goal in audience building. And I'm really excited to take that towards education now. It's such an important need in the country right now. I'm excited to be joining Charles, who's got this incredible track record. And together, we're excited to try to help lower tuition and raise money for grants and generally make education more affordable. I'd like to introduce our partner here, not a partner in the company, but partner in all of this building that we've done, Hill. Nils Dallaire. Nils, Charles, and I worked together at Story Worldwide, an ad agency in New York, about 10, 15 years ago. And it was one of the most creative periods of time in my life to get a chance to work with the two of them. When I left, Charles and Nils teamed up to create Saga content and really built out what is a incredible system for fundraising. And so I watched it from afar, but now I get a chance to put my skills towards the same kind of important goals that they do. Nils's background is pretty crazy. He's a musician. He has created his own band called Future Folk.
All the way from the planet Hondo, we are Future Folk.
He was also the co-founder of Saga with Charles. And so his understanding of working on schools like Columbia, Purdue, and Princeton, I think he's going to bring a lot to the equation. Charles, I'll turn it over to you to continue to set up Nils, because not one person can do it.
Yeah, Nils and I got to work together with some TV projects. First, with promoting, building audiences for syndicated TV programs, as you were part of that as well, Kevin, back in the day. But then, yeah, we translated that success over to universities with Columbia, Purdue, Princeton, and Nils was a key part of that as well, partnering with me on those projects. But yeah, Nils, Future Folk, of course, is the highlight of what I like to talk about with Nils, because he that comedy music duo became an amazing feature film that is consistently ranked as one of the unsung sci-fi comedy romance action buddy movies of all time, really, to be honest.
Wow.
But all of that pales in comparison to what Nils is doing now, which is really interesting, working at SiriusXM as he's sort of leading the charge on audio storytelling, which we definitely want to hear more about today. But nobody here to listen to us, Nils.
Yeah,
I should
exactly.
hand things
Exactly.
to our esteemed guest.
Yeah,
Nobody's here to listen to you.
No.
A great way to lead off our video, right?
Right.
Yep.
I mean, I talk about the teaser.
Yeah. No, I'm just joking. It's great to be here with you guys. And, I think I just sort of hearing that intro, it's, I've had lots of different chapters in my life, but I think the sort of the red thread that ties through all of them is the storytelling aspect that you touched upon. I think it's that same same thread that, of storytelling that made this Future Folk movie, as, made the success in higher education giving. It's all about telling compelling stories.
So, yeah, if you could tell me a little bit about the beginning of Future Folk, because it's really such a incredible story of growing an audience from scratch and really having a unique hook.
Yeah, and it was an accidental success. And Future Folks started out as a music duo that's basically me and another guy in duct tape helmets, cracking jokes and playing music in tiny theaters and comedy clubs in the Lower East Side. And it snowballed. After a while. We were building characters and a backstory on stage, and somehow we had built this whole world after a little while, just with our improv and on-screen banter in between the songs. One day, we were approached by filmmakers, and they said, "We want to take the backstory that you are talking about on stage, and we want to turn that into a real movie." And I said, "I'm sorry, I misunderstood you, because it sounded a lot like you said you wanted to make a movie." But in fact, that was what they had said. And it was a very surreal experience. It kind of is like having a shooting star fall in your lap. And I had to make some very quick adjustments. I quit my job at the advertising agency FCB and went into pre-production for this crazy experience. And we filmed for about 4 months. And when all was said and done, it was about a year before the movie was released. It did not do well in its first round of um, film festivals. We did not get into South by Southwest, and we thought, oh well, it was an exciting project, and we gave it our best shot. And then it started getting traction at the film festivals, and eventually got a distributor both in the theaters and for video on demand. So that meant that the movie was in real theaters across the country and in streaming platforms like Netflix. Now, this is back in 2013, when the library of content that Netflix had was reasonably smaller than what it is now.
But
And
but you were probably the only one that led with a banjo, right? You would
That's
say
true.
of the
Yes.
movies that were on Netflix. If you're looking at the niches, if anybody's looking up banjo movies,
Yeah,
there
we're
you
up
go.
there.
I mean,
We're
you're in
it's
the
up.
algorithm there.
And we should
We're
briefly
eye to eye
explain
with Deliverance.
for the very few people out there who have not seen this movie, because there are probably a few. It is hilarious. It is heartfelt. It's it's one of those rare movies that's funny yet touching at the same time, and it's a great fun ride, which you don't necessarily expect from a sci-fi music driven movie. But I should briefly say that the premise is that you come to Earth. Well, this was sort of the premise of Future Folk in general, that your planet is about to be destroyed by a comet, and in your home planet of Hondo, and in searching for a new planet,
Sure.
you discover Earth. You come to Earth with the intent to kill us all and bring your people here. But then you discover music and you fall in love, and it's an amazing story.
And we form a bluegrass band. Yes,
As
it's
you
a
wish.
Honestly,
classic
it's
genre picture.
I was going to say it's just so tired.
Well, we got very lucky with the timing, because as I mentioned, when we were on Netflix, the just the rotation of content was smaller, and so our little thumbnail would show up on people's suggested for you page, and so there was a lot of organic discovery of people just stumbling upon us. The thumbnail for the movie looks very unusual. Like Kevin mentioned, there's a banjo on it. Maybe that will turn some people away, but there were enough people who were curious enough to click and watch. And then that, again, sort of snowballed into it becoming a bit of a cult film. We were able to do a U.S. tour with 9 cities from coast to coast and show up at these venues with people would be dressed up like our characters with these
How did
silly
that
red
feel?
buckets.
How did that feel?
Surreal. It
Yeah.
feels, it's in a
Far
weird
from
way.
your home, people wearing
Yeah.
buckets on their heads.
Never
Yeah.
been to St. Louis before and showing up to the venue and there's a line of people dressed up like you outside. Interestingly, at the time, and I think this is just sort of the way my personality is, I was thinking like, I should probably be enjoying this more than I am. right? I should probably be doing like an emotional victory lap right now, but my jaw was on the floor, and I just still, it just, I felt very surreal. And so it was the kind of thing, almost in retrospect, is more exciting than when it happened, because when it happened, it just seemed
Right.
so, just so
You were numb, a
impossible
little bit, little numb to what was going on.
a little numb to
Hard to
what was
see the
going
bigger
on. Yeah,
picture. Yeah.
precisely,
Well, also
precisely.
you
Well,
had to move on in your career at
53%
that
on
point
Rotten
because
Tomatoes. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say Kevin and I were working with you at the time because, of course, yeah, you did this movie, and most people don't realize in the movie making business, a lot of time goes by between when you finish filming a movie and when it finally sees the light of day. So you, by then, had gone back into the advertising world,
The
marketing world,
workforce.
and we were working together, doing storytelling again. And so then the movie came out, and I remember us all going as an office to the premiere to see it. And you went back on tour, as you said, but that had to be surreal also going back into that after, thinking, okay, well, that chapter of my life is done. Now I'm moving on to this, moving back to the advertising world.
Yes, Future Folk is one of those projects that has a strange pull. Every time I think it's done, something happens and pulls us back in. In fact, when we were approached about the movie, we hadn't played in probably 4 or 5 months, and we're sort of moving on to other things. And so that reignited the project again. And so who knows? In the future, there may be another chapter there as well.
well, I'm gonna say I've seen the animated layout for how this story could come to life. So if anybody here is in animation and wants to take a great idea forward, it is ready to go. Timing is everything, but that idea is timeless, and the creative work you've done to build out the world for TV, for video,
Yep.
not just TV is one.
Yep.
I think I'm just going to put my 2 cents in there.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, this storytelling and this is a lot of things a lot of things I use today came out of working with the two of you, and the things that we were able to do together. A lot was with the TV networks, USA, FX, WG in America, who was kind enough to take me in after working for them as an agency. But I look at that experience and I think of really where media has gone, and we worked with such a talented group, including yourselves and others, that where social media was going, content development. That's a lot of the things that really came to be when we were all working together.
The tools have changed since then, but the fundamental things of what makes a compelling story never changes.
Yeah, and paying attention to your audience, and
Yep.
like some of the things we did at WG in America with How I Met Your Mother was to put the fans into the story, and we
Yep.
shot promos with fans, and we put their pictures on air for different Mother's Day, Father's Day, whatever it was. We merged that into the programming, so it was also living on social media. And I think those fan first type of things are what are at the heart of what we're looking to do with Giving Work Studio, which is
Yeah.
find the stories that matter, of impact, and tell them to and create a community.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels actually between the work we did for those television IPs than
Modern
as
Family
for the universities. It's leveraging the scale of belief and the scale of fandom.
Well, because I was just going to say, it was always amazing to me when we first started working for universities how little how little they thought about students as being part of the story, and also how little they thought about how can we involve the audience in the conversation. It was still very much a broadcast model, which is exactly what we went through with TV, right? Like TV, a lot of our TV clients they were so used to that broadcast model. We're just going to put stuff out there. And we hope people engage with it. And as you said, Kevin, we involved fans actually in that story and incorporated them into the marketing. And yeah, Nils, we did that with universities too, making sure that the alumni are being included in that as a conversation. It's a value exchange, right? You're not just, staying away from them for 9 months and then all of a sudden begging them to give money. You're actually involving them in the story, making them remember why they loved going to this university in the first place, making them feel part of that club, that community, and then also showing them the students, involving the students in that story so they can see the impact, right? They can see, oh, I'm giving money and I'm helping these kids, and these kids are great. They're accomplishing things that I could never dream of when I was a student. And that's something that was so important with a lot of the university work that Nils and I did together at Saga Content for Columbia, for Purdue, for Princeton, for Georgetown, for Dartmouth, all these different schools.
Yeah, when you can get that flywheel, that virtuous cycle going of people contributing and also then benefiting from other people contributing and being inspired to contribute more, that's where things really get exciting because they take on a life of their own.
Yeah. And I think, one of the aspects that I learned also during our time at Story when we were doing those social media campaigns is how important it is to have that community management when people are sharing, that there's a dialogue back and forth. And we worked with a guy named Luke Dringali, who's now at GoFundMe Pro. And, I learned a lot from those kinds of, how do you not just broadcast at somebody, but create the two-way dialogue and make sure that they understand that they've shared something and they've been seen for sharing it by the people they want to be seen. And, I think that's part of what has made the philosophy that you and Charles have honed in this storytelling, is that it's building that ongoing connection and dialogue back and forth, highlighting the student stories and the teacher stories and the education stories. But more than anything, it's a regular dialogue, that consistency. So like, if you, as Charles said earlier, if you show up one day out of nowhere asking for money, they don't know what you've been doing for what did you do with last year's money? That's part of the reason that you need to create that connection. And at this moment at this moment in media, the donor communities are, first of all, they're getting younger, but they're growing up and doing it differently. They're looking at subscription models. They want to see you show up in their feed to tell them stories. And if you're not there, somebody else is going to be there. And so, we're here to teach people both from a storytelling perspective, but also help them set up from a campaign perspective, how to stay engaged over a course of a year.
Yeah.
And, it's an exciting opportunity, unfortunately made more important because of what's happening in our country with funding and, grants. And there's a lot of unknowns for universities. And if they don't take this moment to really look at how they connect to their donor community, they're taking a risk.
And that idea of hope is not a strategy is so important. I mean, Nils and I definitely saw this with universities that we would talk to, compare it to Purdue and the success they had, because consistency was the bread and butter of the model with them, right? They worked hard. The whole team was on board. The whole university, like, it became a campus-wide event when we did their Day of Giving, and everybody, and that communication continued throughout the year, like coming back to that. It became something that was really important on the campus calendar, all across the board. Compare that to other schools that we, may have talked to or pitched the idea to, and they said, that sounds great, we're going to do that, but we can do it on our own. And they would just set a giving day for a certain date and then wait for the money to roll in. But they didn't actually put in that consistent effort to make it sort of a year-round push to motivate people to react to that event.
Yeah, when you're asking thousands of people to commit to something bigger than themselves, the message can't just be a one-time fireworks show. And that's actually the lesson that I carry from advertising and fundraising and back and forth. To your point, is consistency isn't boring. It's trust, right? When you show up consistently, you're not just telling a story, you're building that relationship. And I think that's very important for success.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should also talk about how you were able to translate all of this to the work you're doing over at Pandora and SiriusXM with audio storytelling, because we definitely want to hear about the work you're doing over there.
Sure. Yeah. So my role at SiriusXM Media, and I actually work at a department within SiriusXM called Studio Resonate. And Studio Resonate is SiriusXM's internal audio-first creative agency. And the way we function is when a brand wants to advertise on our networks, a lot of times they'll have a radio spot or an asset that an audio asset that they already have. On a lot of our platforms, those FM radio ads just don't work very well because our ad breaks are short, and you don't need to shout Sunday, Sunday, Sunday to get people to remember your brand in the middle of a 8-minute ad break. So you can be much more
Raceway Park may not be for everybody,
Yes,
but
that's right.
Sunday,
That's
Sunday,
right.
Sunday, or Raceway Park.
Exactly. And so what we do is we take people's we'll take people's ads and we'll make new ones that are appropriate for the platform, or if they don't have audio ads, because a lot of brands and advertising agencies sort of deprioritize audio storytelling, which is something that I'm working to very hard to combat. But that's where we come in, where we understand our platforms, our listeners, the audiences, and what kind of messages work best for which audiences. But it's not just doing 30s and 15s. We do a lot of experiential things with audio that are very interesting. So a big part of my job is just sort of opening people's ears to the power of audio. So brand managers, CMOs, people who are maybe can sort of unlock some of the budget to be creative in these spaces. So a good example of this. Go ahead, Kevin. You have a question?
Please, I'd love to see
Yep.
the example, but in general, I'm curious where the journey from where you started at Studio Resonant and the growth of sound as audio from like, it feels like it's gotten a lot bigger and more important, even though you're still climbing some mountains. So
Yes. Well, we're trying to espouse this idea that audio can hack your brain, and audio is a very interesting sense because it's cross-modally interlinked with lots of our other senses. So a very simple example of this would be like the sound of a grilling burger can make you hungry because it stimulates your hunger center, or there's a lot of interesting evolutionary things that we still hold on to in terms of audio that we can use from a storytelling and marketing perspective. Another very simple example is, do you guys know why humans find the sound of birdsong so relaxing? Because to our ancient ancestors, when there were birds singing, that meant that there were likely no predators in the area. When the birds go quiet, that is a potential sign for danger. So even though we don't have to worry about saber-toothed tigers in the same way as we did several 100,000 years ago, we still have those types of triggers. So there's a lot of connections between audio and the parasympathetic nervous system, and the parts of your brain that make hormones. That's why when you hear somebody's ringtone, that's the same noise as your alarm. When you wake up in the morning, your heart starts to beat and you start feeling stressed out because of this association. Another the example I was going to give before earlier about ways brands can incorporate audio into their storytelling that are go beyond traditional advertising, is we have the opportunity to partner with brands occasionally on some interesting projects. For example, Cheez-It. You guys know those delicious bite-sized cheese snacks? Cheez-It.
I've got kids, of course. I know Cheez-Its. Yeah,
this
sure.
is Body by Cheez-Its.
My apologies. We worked with them, and based on a Swiss study that found that cheese develops distinct flavors depending on variations in air pressure, right? So if you think about the way that cheese ages, it's all these bacterias. And when there is air pressure, it changes the way that these bacteria behave. So we did some experimenting, and we created a special edition version of Cheez-It where the cheese was aged to hip hop music for 8 months. So we created this. We created a playlist for all the tempos for all the same songs were exactly the same. We time matched them, and we put transducers on the pallets where the cheese was being aged. And for 6 months, 24 hours a day, played this playlist over and over and over. And the result was that the cheese had a different flavor at the end of the aging process. That cheese was then used to create a special edition of Cheez-It aged by audio, Pandora edition Cheez-Its. And that was an earned media opportunity because there was a lot of buzz in the hip hop world about
Right.
how
Are you saying
the music
that's not
has
a crowded
changed.
space?
That's not a no. Strangely, aging cheese to music is a white space. If anybody's looking for
Right.
some
Oh, but
new
it's
areas
similar to what's
to
been
play in.
happening. Similar things been happening in the whiskey world. There's this whole line called Blackened. I'm sure you know about that, where the whiskey is aged. It's being blasted with Metallica music while it's being aged, and that creates
Oh,
for
right.
a different age. Like it
Yeah.
tastes different. It's actually
Yep.
it's remarkable. It's a remarkable process. So
Yep.
Are you the one who came up with the hip hop to cheese idea?
No, I'm the one who's taking credit for it, though.
well done. Well played.
Perfect. I mean, why change now, right?
Yeah. I love how your career after helping universities sort of harkens back to Future Folk in the sense that you've gone into sort of a psychological warfare realm and sort of taking over the world.
We do all kinds of cool experiential things with clients. So, for example, at CES this past year at the Consumer Electronics Show, I put together a program where part of it is, this whole thing, people have headphones on and you're on mics and there's a producer mixing in sound effects. And we had two different bowls of ground coffee, and we had people would smell each one and then on a rate different flavor profiles. So bitterness and, fruitiness and so on and so forth. And then at the end, we had them compare their evaluation of these two coffee grounds. And they were consistently very different. The first one was always bitter and the second one was always sweet across, I would say, 90% of the audience. Those, of course, I'm sure you can see where this is going, same coffee. And the only thing that changed was the soundtrack that we played in people's ears. And so just by changing what people hear, we changed the experience of what they were able to smell. And so this is, it's a little bit of a parlor trick, but it is a good example of how strong sound is in influencing other senses as well.
That's fascinating.
That is. It is. How do you find that your background in music helps you in your job?
It's interesting. I think that there's a lot, sort of like the storytelling. I think that there's a lot of consistency with music and what I do, in that everything I do, I try to have it have a hook, and have it be a little bit of an earworm, even if it's not an audio asset. The way I think about audience attention is that every second you have to claw and you have to claw their attention every second. There's so much competition. And if you don't make something catchy and sticky, it's going to disappear. Whether that's music, whether that's storytelling, whether that's a PowerPoint deck. Everything you do has to be fighting for that minute's attention. And when that minute is over, you have to start over as if you had, from zero, and fight for the following minute's attention. So what happens there is takes a long time to make a deck, but hopefully at the end it's entertaining. I try to make everything fun, because one thing I have learned is that people like fun, and if something can be fun, it is easier to learn. It is easier to imagine. It is easier to engage with. And it doesn't feel like work. And when people are doing things that don't feel like work, that's when you get the best out of them, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, the retaining, it's like putting the medicine in the applesauce, but you really need people to appreciate the whole experience.
And I'll spend 90% of the time
agree.
on the applesauce and 10% of the time on the medicine, because the medicine is easy. Medicine is like, the medicine is the brief. But how do you Trojan horse that into something that, to a jaded and cynical audience, that feels like a value exchange, like you're giving them something fun for their attention.
And that's so key, to make them feel upfront that they're getting something worthwhile, rather than being told that they have to whether it's money, whether it's, sharing things in social, putting in the effort. People don't want to have to think upfront, oh, I've got to do this work just to feel better. You want them to be able to engage with something fun first, and then they're much more receptive to that Trojan horse messaging. Whether you're asking them to donate or watch a show or buy a product, there's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of similarity there. It's interesting. I was thinking back to when we first started working on Columbia, Nils. I'm sure you remember how they were very, even though they were willing to try the Giving Day model to do something different than what they'd done in the past. They were skeptical that it would work because they said that their audience was very jaded and cynical, and yeah, they'd been getting fundraising messaging and they just hadn't responded to it. But we found like they were just reaching out. They were reaching out to young donors with the same printed mailings, with the same ad in the alumni magazine. They were
same
not
dusty language.
Yeah, they weren't thinking of
absolutely.
like how do I speak in a way that audience will actually be receptive to? And that's channel as much as it is the actual language itself, making sure that you're actually reaching your audience where they are rather than forcing them to cross over to where you want them to be is
Nobody's going to do that.
Yeah.
Nobody's crossing
and
anywhere these days.
no, but that year one ended with a world record, and that was incredible. I came on for year two to help the team and got to see from the inside Charles and the system and how it came to be, and also the power of it. So, like I said, when I exited stage left to go to WGN America, which is now News Nation, I saw what you guys were doing at Saga Content, and it's just amazing. And so for me, having these storytelling and marketing skills at this time in my life, to be able to put it towards education, something that has incredible resonance for all of us. I have a middle schooler; he's got 3 kids. You've got 2. The future is unknown. So taking all what we do and bringing it over to education for me is it's a blessing.
I feel like one thing that's different about the environment now than when I was working with you guys. How many political texts do you get sent on your phone every day? I mean,
Yeah,
I
every day.
get probably a dozen that just start say press stop to unsubscribe. Is the first sentence, and then it's or there's the ones that's I'm begging you.
Yeah.
There's so many direct pleas on all channels now that I feel like the cynicism around that stuff must be even greater just because of the sheer number of solicitations that people get on a daily basis. One thing that's that another interesting evolution in media that I've observed recently is how TikTok has changed how people engage with audio. So let's think, for example, memes, right? Like memes used to be purely visual in nature, and now, as I'm sure you guys with kids know, most of the memes are audio memes. They're TikTok clips that can be repeated on the playground or whatever, and so it's interesting how audio is kind of surfacing in the attention economy through social media, which is primarily a visual medium, but TikTok is kind of putting that on its.
It is changing. I mean, I remember, Nils, a lot of because when we were doing work for universities, a huge part of it every year was video, right? Like we were creating sort of a premiere, like almost a movie trailer-esque. One year literally was done as a movie trailer, but doing that sort of premiere video to get people excited, the coming soon aspect of the event, and then the gratitude afterwards to make sure you could continue that stewardship of them as donors, and then in between motivating the audience to create their own videos with the assets that we created, a lot of user-generated content. But I remember back in those days, there was always, we always had to pay a lot of attention to making sure that everything we were communicating was on screen, both through on-screen graphics and titles, because the dynamic then was very much that people are watching these videos at work and they don't have the audio on, right? Because they can't get in trouble at work. So we have to make sure that we're communicating on screen. And you're right, that has completely changed. Kids now, like TikTok, you're right, there's so many things, these memes that are driven by a common audio clip that people are just attaching their own video content to.
Yeah, and I'm going to go one step further. I'm going to say that's partially due to the ubiquitous AirPods. Kids can have those little white buds in their ears all day, and
And
they're
they
getting
do.
two
Yeah, it's like
streams.
it's
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. Also one aspect to the work you guys did, and you also mentioned fun, and I'm a big fan of fun too. I don't know if you know
What
that.
you?
Yeah, you know, um, gamification. The work that you started at Columbia, that you've taken to Purdue, that you've taken to other places, keeping it fun, getting the different schools involved. Uh, Charles, Nils, can you talk a little bit about that process? Because I think that really felt like it born out of that mission, which is keep it fun.
Yeah, a big thing that kicked that off was actually having one of the key stakeholders at Columbia say to us part of the problem they had at Columbia was they weren't just siloed in their thinking with all the different schools and departments, but there at Columbia, those silos had missiles in them and they were pointed at each other, right? It wasn't enough for the the business school to succeed. They wanted the journalism school to fail, and so they could succeed. And admittedly, we haven't quite seen that dynamic at other schools, but that competitive nature does translate. Like obviously Purdue is sort of the quintessential example of that. By having these sort of hourly challenges and full day challenges in a range of different fields, you can help with gamification drive a lot more interest for the School of Pharmacy, for instance. They do very well at Purdue because they're great at motivating their audience, and the marching band too is great at this, motivating their audiences to participate and win challenges that are based on participation, whether it's sending out the most tweets in this hour, or the most $10 donations in this hour, or whatever gets up to a certain level. But that they very much have the attitude more of the rising tide lifts all boats, right? It's okay to compete because we're all competing ultimately for the same goal of raising money for the university and for students to go here. But every school's different, right? And so they can play that sort of that gamification angle in different ways. Like with Princeton, Nils, I'm sure you remember, like with Princeton, it was more about the different class years, right? And how if you are, class of 97, you want to make sure you do better than, the two classes on the other side of you. You're not necessarily going to compete yourself to a class from the 40s or compare yourself to them, but you're competing against the classes near you, and you want to make sure that your class comes out on top in that regard.
Yeah, and I think also just sort of more general as well, it's a trigger for motivating behavior is ego, right? And whether that is pride in your um, in your field, or the part of the university that you're in, or seeing your image on the school's social media site, um, playing to that ego. And I don't mean ego in a pejorative sense. I just mean that people are interested in their own stories, right? We're all interested in our own stories. And when you can see your story reflected some way on a larger platform, I think that's a leverage point for action.
No doubt. No
Yeah.
doubt. What's next for Studio Resonant? Where do what are you working on, and what's ahead? Anything you see on the horizon?
Well, it's the audio storytelling marketing space is very competitive and always changing. So it feels like we are always having to evolve, how we work to keep up. We are evolving from more of a reactive agency to a proactive agency. Whereas when I began, we would get briefs and RFPs and execute on those. More recently, we're looking for those exciting audio opportunities. We're approaching potential partners with exciting ideas that we think could activate their brand through audio in exciting ways, and really trying to make the audio first component something that is exciting for people, rather than part of a media plan that eventually you get to it in the in the bullet list of channels.
Right.
Well, I mean, Cheez-Its and Grandmaster Flash you brought together. So you're
Yeah,
Wow, that's a
exactly.
very relevant cultural reference for you there, Kevin, with Grandmaster Flash.
That's right. Very topical.
I think
Although the other thing
under our
TikTok has
names,
done
we don't have our
is
ages,
made
but I think we
music
know who
flat.
the oldest is. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say TikTok has made the timeline of music flat for
Yeah.
a certain
Yes.
audience, which is another interesting byproduct of that platform. But I heard one of my girls humming "Careless Whisper" the other day, and I'm like, "How do you know Careless
Yeah.
Whisper?" And she was like, "How do you know that song?" And I was like, "That song's from like the '80s." But she thought it was a new song. So,
Yeah, there was a song in The Bear from Radiohead that I can't remember which it is right now, but it's blowing up now, and that is the
yeah,
flatness that you're
right.
talking about. Is that
It's like the
they
Kate
don't see
Bush thing.
something
Yeah.
from the ear, they hear the sound,
No.
and yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. No.
Kate Bush is a great example, and like I was just thinking, my daughter, I just brought her back to college this weekend, and her playlist that she was listening to, she had the Mills Brothers and Frank Sinatra right up against the Beatles, right up against Screaming Trees, right up against Tyler the Creator and the new Taylor Swift stuff, and it's just like she's got
The Future
all.
Folk soundtrack. And,
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're
of
listening to
course.
Space Worms all day long, but that's
We are.
important to get that in the mix too. But it's interesting that when you say music is flat, yet to them they don't necessarily think like in the same way that we would think, oh, that's classic rock. Like we have a natural tendency to want at our age to want to pin things into genres and eras, and they don't look at it the same way. They're just like, no, it's all
No,
just
you're right.
it's a cool
I
song.
mean, they've grown up with ubiquity. Like the reason that we knew those things is because it cost money, $16 to get a CD, and
Yeah.
you had to make choices. And
Right. And
now,
everything else was just what was on the radio.
yeah, and some places didn't have dynamic radio, so
Mhm.
it's the ability to search for your type of music and your interests were not there before, but this generation just knows absolutely nothing else other than turning to Alexa and saying, "Play Screaming Trees."
Mm-hmm.
Which I do 20 times a day, but
There it is. Someone's streaming it.
By
you
the way,
shouldn't say the name.
this is costing us money by the second. Alexa, stop. But I knew, Charles, spending time with him to find out his Mark Lonigan and Screaming Trees obsession is a little. I didn't know there was that much depth to the catalog, but
Oh, I could
The
regale
screaming
you.
never stops. Yep.
it's now after when I'm sleeping, but that's different. It's different.
Yeah. That will go away too.
Yeah, look, in kind of wrapping it up here, I just want to say, like, for me to be able to step into working with Charles, who I've always loved working with, building off of what the two of you guys did together at a time when the reason is really necessary. The goal is to lower the cost of education, to raise money for grants, to make school more affordable for more people. The mission-based institutions we can help as well, but we have this incredible track record that we're hoping to take to the world, and we really appreciate you taking the time to share your journey both at Studio Resonant, but the time that you did with Charles and the time we worked together.
No, this has been great. Thank you for spending some time with me. I'm really excited to see your guys' success. I know that what we've been talking about, sort of blurring the lines between fundraising and advertising and mission is what
And
you guys do best. And Cheez-Its, blending Cheez-Its. But yeah, no, I mean, again, to your earlier point, good storytelling is how you earn attention. It's how you build loyalty, and it's ultimately how you motivate people to act. So I'm thrilled that you guys are putting those skills to good use.
Yeah, we love to say that storytelling, and we help produce storytelling that inspires giving, but I mean, as we know, storytelling inspires action across the board, right? So
Yep.
it translates into so many different fields as a way to drive people, because you want the story to resonate with the audience, as you obviously are doing in your studio, Nils. But it's very important to explore all the different channels that are available to you to do that, and it's really inspiring to hear what you're doing in the audio field, Nils, because I think that, as you say, a lot of people sort of moved away from audio, or audio was always there, but we stopped thinking about it as much, right? Because people think, oh, that's radio, radio ads back in the day, but you're really pushing a lot of boundaries in that field, which is really inspiring to hear about.
Thank you.
All
It was
right.
great to
Well,
talk with you guys.
yeah, great to talk to you too, and hopefully we can have you on again.
I hope so too.
All right.
Hondo.
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 See you guys.